For 6 months, I let my family believe I was losing my mind. I pretended to forget names, misplace things, repeat the same stories over and over. They thought I was becoming a burden, a problem to solve. But what they didn't know was that I was watching, listening, and recording every single conversation they had about putting me away. Last Tuesday, when they gathered in my living room with brochures for nursing homes, I stood up, walked to my desk, and pressed play on the recording device I'd hidden there for months. You should have seen their faces when they heard their own voices plotting to steal everything I'd worked my whole life for. Thanks for being here with me today. Before we dive deeper into this story, please like this video, subscribe to Mama Rosa Remembers, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to know how far this story of family betrayal and unexpected justice has traveled. My name is Helen Carter, and I'm 72 years old. 6 months ago, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to become an actress, and let me tell you, it was the performance of my life. It all started on a quiet Thursday morning in March when I overheard a conversation that chilled me to the bone. I was in my bedroom, supposedly napping, when my son Julian and his wife Monica thought they were having a private conversation in my kitchen. Their voices carried through the thin walls of my modest Atlanta home, the house I'd lived in for 43 years, the house where I'd raised Julian as a single mother after his father walked away. "She's getting worse, Julian." Monica's voice was sharp with impatience. "Yesterday she asked me 3 times what day it was, and she left the coffee pot on again." Julian's response was softer, more conflicted. "Mom's just getting older, Monica. She's been through a lot since Dad died." "Your stepfather died 2 years ago," Monica snapped. "How long are we supposed to make excuses? She can't live alone much longer." That's when I heard the rustling of papers, and Monica's voice took on a calculating tone that made my blood run cold. "I've been researching some options. There are several nice assisted living facilities in the area. And Julian, we need to think about the house. The property value has gone up significantly. If we sold it, we could cover her care for years and still have something left over." My heart hammered against my ribs as I lay perfectly still, listening to them discuss my future as if I were already gone. Julian was quiet for a long moment before he spoke again. "I don't know, Monica. This is her home. She's been here since before I was born." "But it's not practical anymore," Monica pressed. "She's going to hurt herself or worse. And we have Sienna to think about. College isn't getting any cheaper, and your mother's medical expenses are only going to increase." That's when something shifted inside me. My 16-year-old granddaughter, Sienna, Julian's daughter from his first marriage, was being used as justification for stealing my home. The same granddaughter I'd helped raise when Julian was working 2 jobs after his divorce. The same girl whose college fund I'd been quietly contributing to for years. I realized in that moment that I had 2 choices. I could confront them immediately and watch them deny everything, claim they were just exploring options, just being responsible. Or I could be smarter than that. I could find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. So I made my decision. I would give them exactly what they seemed to want to see, an aging woman losing her grip on reality. But I would also do something they'd never expect from someone with dementia. I would document every single word, every conversation, every plan they made for my future. The next morning, I began my performance. When Julian stopped by to check on me before work, I greeted him with confusion. "Who are you, young man?" I asked, squinting at him with genuine-looking bewilderment. The pain that flashed across his face almost made me break character. Almost. "Mom, it's me. It's Julian, your son." I let my expression clear slowly, as if the fog was lifting. "Oh, Julian, of course. I'm sorry, baby. I don't know where my mind went." He hugged me tight, and I could feel his worry in the way his arms trembled slightly. "It's okay, Mom. We all have off days." But I knew Monica would hear about this, and I knew she'd file it away as more evidence that I was declining faster than they'd thought. That afternoon, I drove to the electronics store downtown and bought the smallest, most sophisticated recording device they had. The young man behind the counter showed me how to use it, how to hide it, how to transfer the files to my computer. If Julian and Monica thought I was too confused to use technology, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The war for my life, my home, and my dignity had begun. And they had no idea they were fighting someone who was 3 steps ahead of them. Over the next few weeks, my performance became more elaborate and convincing. I started small, forgetting where I put my reading glasses, asking Julian to repeat things he'd just said, staring blankly when Monica asked me simple questions. Each confused moment was carefully calculated, but to them, it looked like their worst fears were coming true. Julian's concern was genuine, and that made what I was doing both necessary and heartbreaking. My son had always been a good man, raised with strong values despite his father abandoning us when he was just 8 years old. But Monica had a way of planting seeds of doubt, watering them with practical concerns until they grew into full-blown anxieties. "Maybe we should have Mom see Dr. Pierce," Julian suggested one evening while I pretended to doze in my recliner. They thought I was asleep, but I was listening to every word, my small recording device tucked discreetly in the side pocket of my chair. "I already called her office," Monica replied, her voice taking on that efficient tone she used when she'd already made decisions for everyone else. "She can see your mother next Thursday. I thought it would be good to get a baseline, document where she is mentally right now." Document where she is mentally. The clinical coldness of those words made my skin crawl. But I kept my breathing steady, my face relaxed, playing the part of an old woman drifting in and out of awareness. Dr. Lorraine Pierce had been my physician for over 15 years. She was a sharp, compassionate woman in her 50s who'd guided me through menopause, high blood pressure, and the grief of losing my husband. If anyone would see through my act, it would be her. But I had to take that risk. A refusal to see the doctor would seem suspicious, and Monica was already watching my every move with those calculating eyes. The appointment was scheduled for 2 o'clock on Thursday. Julian took time off work to drive me, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly as we made the familiar drive to Dr. Pierce's office. "Mom," he said softly as we sat in the parking lot, "if something's wrong, if you're scared about what's happening to your memory, you can tell me. We'll figure it out together, okay?" The love in his voice almost broke me. This was my boy, the same child who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who brought me dandelions from the yard and called them flowers. How had we gotten to this place where his love was being twisted into something that could destroy me? "I'm fine, baby," I said, letting a slight tremor creep into my voice. "Just getting old, I suppose." Dr. Pierce's examination was thorough. She tested my reflexes, checked my blood pressure, asked me to remember 3 words and repeat them back to her 5 minutes later. I deliberately got 2 of them wrong. "Mrs. Carter," she said gently, "Julian tells me you've been having some memory issues. Can you tell me about them?" I gave her a confused look, glancing at Julian as if for help. "Memory issues? I don't know what he means." Julian leaned forward in his chair. "Mom, remember yesterday when you asked me 3 times if I'd fed the cat, and you don't have a cat anymore?" I let my face go blank, as if trying to process this information. I asked about a cat? Dr. Pierce made notes in my file, her expression professionally neutral, but I caught her looking at me with a sharpness that made me wonder if she suspected something. Lorraine Pierce was nobody's fool. "I'd like to run some blood tests," she said finally, "just to rule out any underlying causes like vitamin deficiencies or thyroid issues. And I think it might be helpful to have someone from the family present during your daily activities, just to get a clearer picture of what's happening at home." Monica's eyes lit up at this suggestion. "I could arrange for a home health aide," she said quickly, "someone who could visit a few times a week, help with medication management, that sort of thing." "That might be very helpful," Dr. Pierce agreed, though something in her tone suggested she was thinking beyond just medical care. As we left the office, Monica was already on her phone, calling agencies, researching aids, taking control of my life one practical step at a time. But what she didn't know was that I was already 2 steps ahead, planning how to use even this invasion of my privacy to my advantage. Every move they made, I was documenting, Every conversation, every decision made without consulting me, every time they talked about me like I wasn't in the room. My small recording device was capturing it all, building a case that would eventually bury their plans completely. The Worried Family Act was working perfectly. Now it was time to let them see just how much they thought they could get away with. The home health aide arrived the following Monday morning. Her name was Tanya Brooks, a kind woman in her 40s with gentle hands and observant eyes. What Monica didn't realize when she hired Tanya was that she was giving me the perfect witness to document just how capable I really was. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," Tanya said warmly as Monica led her through my house like she owned the place. "I'm here to help you with whatever you need." I gave her my best confused grandmother smile. "That's very nice, dear. Are you here to see Julian?" Monica exchanged a meaningful look with Tanya. "No, Mom, Tanya is here to help you. Remember we talked about this?" I let my face go blank, as if the conversation had never happened. But what Monica couldn't see was Tanya's subtle reaction, the slight tilt of her head that suggested she was paying attention to more than just my supposed confusion. Over the next few days, I carefully revealed my true capabilities to Tanya while maintaining my act around the family. When Monica wasn't there, I would make perfect meals, organize my medications correctly, and engage in completely coherent conversations about current events and family history. But the moment I heard Monica's car in the driveway, I would transform back into the befuddled woman everyone expected to see. Tanya was nobody's fool. By the end of her first week, I caught her watching me with a knowing expression when she thought no one was looking. But she never said anything. Professional discretion, or perhaps something deeper, some recognition of what was really happening in this house. It was during Tanya's second week that the conversations I'd been waiting for finally began. Julian and Monica thought I was napping upstairs when they sat down with Tanya in my living room to discuss my condition. From my bedroom, with my door cracked just enough to hear clearly, I listened as Monica painted a picture of rapid mental decline. "She's getting worse every day," Monica said, her voice heavy with manufactured concern. "Yesterday, she put her purse in the refrigerator, and she asked me 4 times if I'd seen her car keys while she was holding them." I almost laughed out loud. I had done exactly those things, but only when I was sure Monica was watching. Every confused moment was performed for her benefit, carefully staged to build the case she seemed so eager to make. "What I'm concerned about," Monica continued, "is safety. What if she leaves the stove on and burns the house down? What if she wanders outside and gets lost?" Julian's voice was quieter, more reluctant. "The doctor said it could just be normal aging. Maybe we're overreacting." "Julian, honey." Monica's voice took on that patronizing tone she used when she wanted to make him feel naive. "Your mother is not just aging. This is something more serious, and we have to think about what's best for her, even if it's hard." That's when Tanya spoke up, and her words surprised everyone in the room. "Mrs. Carter seems quite capable when it's just the two of us," she said carefully. "She makes excellent meals, her house is spotless, and her conversation is very clear and coherent." The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear Monica's brain working, trying to figure out how to spin this information. "Well, that's how this disease works," Monica said finally. "Good days and bad days, but the bad days are getting more frequent." "Actually," Tanya continued, "I haven't observed any bad days when family isn't present. Mrs. Carter seems most confused when she's around people she knows well. Sometimes that's a sign of emotional stress rather than cognitive decline." I wanted to stand up and applaud Tanya's professional integrity. She was giving them the truth, even though Monica had hired her. Julian seized on this information. "You think Mom might be depressed? Anxious about something?" But Monica wasn't about to let her narrative fall apart so easily. "Tanya, I appreciate your observations, but we live with her. We see the day-to-day reality, and that reality is that she's declining rapidly. Julian, we need to start thinking about long-term solutions." That's when I heard the rustle of papers again, and Monica's voice dropped to a more conspiratorial tone. I've been researching facilities, and there are some beautiful places that specialize in memory care. Places where she'd be safe, where trained professionals could monitor her condition. Monica, I'm not ready to talk about putting Mom in a home, Julian said firmly. It wouldn't be a home. It would be a community, Monica corrected. And Julian, we have to be realistic about the financial aspect. Your mother's house is sitting on nearly $400,000 in equity. If something happened to her, if she needed emergency medical care, that money could be gone in a few years. But if we made some smart decisions now, my blood ran cold. $400,000. They had already had my house appraised. You had the house appraised? Julian's voice carried the same shock I was feeling. I just wanted to know what we were looking at, Monica said defensively, for planning purposes. Julian, your mother could live comfortably for decades with that kind of money properly invested. And when something does happen to her, there would still be something left for Sienna's future. There it was, the real reason behind all of this. My granddaughter's college fund was being used to justify stealing my home. As I lay there listening to them discuss my future like I was already dead, I realized that my performance had worked too well. They were no longer just exploring options, they were making plans. It was time to start gathering more serious evidence, because what I was hearing wasn't just family concern anymore, it was conspiracy, plain and simple. And I was going to make sure every word of it was documented. After learning about the house appraisal, I knew I had to escalate my performance. If Monica was moving from exploration to action, I needed to give them enough rope to hang themselves with. So I became the perfect patient for their narrative, a woman so clearly declining that their difficult decisions would seem not just reasonable but necessary. I started leaving lights on all night, claiming I was afraid of the dark. I would put milk in the pantry and cereal in the refrigerator, always when Monica was there to witness it. I began calling Julian by his father's name, watching the pain flash across his face every time I pretended not to recognize the man who had been the center of my world for 44 years. The hardest part was involving my granddaughter, Sienna. She would visit after school, bringing homework and teenage energy into my quiet house. When Monica was around, I would look at this beautiful girl with pretended confusion. "Who is this young lady?" I asked one afternoon, watching Sienna's face crumple with hurt. "It's me, Grandma. It's Sienna." I let my expression clear slowly, as if struggling to place her. "Oh, Sienna, of course, you've grown so much." But when Monica wasn't there, when it was just Sienna and me, I made sure she knew she was loved. I would help her with algebra, listen to her stories about school drama, and slip $20 bills into her backpack with notes that said, "For something special, love Grandma." Those moments were real, even if everything else was performance. Monica's patience was wearing thin faster than Julian's. I could see it in the tight line of her mouth when she thought I wasn't looking, in the way she spoke to me like I was a child who couldn't understand simple instructions. "Helen, you cannot keep leaving the stove on," she said one morning after discovering I'd left a pot of water boiling all night. Of course, I'd turned it off before going to bed and turned it back on at 5 in the morning, just before Julian's usual arrival time. "You could burn the house down. You could kill yourself." Julian looked exhausted. The strain of watching his mother disappear was taking its toll, and I hated that my deception was causing him genuine pain. But I reminded myself that his pain was nothing compared to what would happen if I let them succeed in their plan. "Maybe we should look into some of those places Monica mentioned," he said quietly one evening. They thought I was in the bathroom, but I was listening from the hallway, my recording device capturing every word. "I've already made some appointments," Monica said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "Sunrise Manor has an opening in their memory care unit. We could tour it this weekend." "This weekend?" Julian sounded overwhelmed. "Monica, I'm not ready for this." "Julian, when will you be ready? When she burns the house down, when she wanders into traffic, when she doesn't remember who you are anymore? That last part was especially cruel because earlier that day, in front of Monica, I had asked Julian if he was the mailman. The social worker at Sunrise Manor explained everything to me. Monica continued, "If we act now, while your mother still has some awareness, the transition will be easier for everyone. And Julian, the financial planning makes sense. The house money could be put into a trust that would cover her care indefinitely." "What about Mom's wishes?" Julian asked. "She's always said she wanted to die in this house." "Your mother isn't capable of making those decisions anymore," Monica replied firmly. "That's why she has us. That's why we have to make the hard choices for her." The next morning, Monica arrived with brochures for 3 different facilities. She spread them across my kitchen table like she was planning a vacation, not the destruction of my life. "Look, Helen," she said, speaking slowly and loudly as if I were deaf instead of supposedly confused. "These are some beautiful places where you could live, places with people who understand your condition." I looked at the glossy photographs of smiling elderly people in pristine common rooms and felt sick. These weren't homes. They were warehouses for inconvenient family members. "I don't understand," I said, playing my part perfectly. "Why would I want to live somewhere else? This is my home." Monica's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw the irritation flash across her face before she composed herself. "Because, Helen, you need more help than Julian and I can provide. Professional help." That afternoon, I called my old friend Leonard Hayes, my neighbor of 20 years. Leonard was a retired detective who had always kept an eye on the neighborhood. If anyone would understand what I was facing, it would be him. "Leonard," I said when he answered the phone, "I need your help with something, and I need you to keep it confidential. Helen, you know you can trust me. What's going on?" "I'm being set up by my own family," I said, dropping the confused act completely. "And I need someone I can trust to witness what's really happening here." The silence on the other end of the line told me Leonard was taking this seriously. "Tell me everything," he said. And for the first time in weeks, I dropped my performance completely and told someone the truth. Leonard Hayes arrived at my house the next morning, 30 minutes after Julian and Monica left for their jobs. His weathered face carried the serious expression of a man who'd spent 25 years in law enforcement, and his sharp eyes immediately began cataloging details the way old habits demanded. "Helen, I've known you since you moved to this neighborhood," he said, settling into my kitchen chair. "I've watched you raise Julian, survive your husband's death, and handle every challenge life threw at you with grace and intelligence. So when you tell me your family is trying to steal your home and have you committed, I believe you." I poured him coffee in the good china, my hand steady and sure, demonstrating the competence I'd been hiding for months. "Leonard, what I'm about to show you could put my son in legal jeopardy," I said. "But if I don't act soon, I'll lose everything I've worked for my entire life." I brought out my laptop and the digital recorder, along with a thick folder of documents I'd been compiling. Leonard's expression grew darker as I played him recordings of Monica and Julian discussing my condition and their plans for my house. "This is financial elder abuse," Leonard said bluntly after hearing Monica laugh about fooling the old woman with dementia, "and conspiracy to commit fraud. Helen, this isn't just family drama. This is criminal behavior." I showed him printed screenshots of Monica's internet searches on my computer history, searches I'd discovered when I checked her browsing activity during her visits. Memory care facilities Atlanta, how to get power of attorney for elderly parent, average cost of dementia care, and most damning of all, how long does Medicaid look-back period last for asset transfer? "She's been planning this for months," I said, pointing to the search dates. "Look, this search for power of attorney procedures was from February, a full month before I started my confused act." Leonard studied the documents with professional thoroughness. "Helen, this suggests premeditation. Monica was researching how to control your assets before you showed any signs of cognitive decline." I had more evidence. Bank statements showing that Monica had convinced Julian to be added to my checking account for emergencies, and then used the account to pay for her own credit card bills. Phone records proving she'd been calling assisted living facilities for weeks. Even photographs I'd secretly taken of documents she'd left on my table, including a handwritten timeline titled Mom's Transition Plan. She made a timeline? Leonard asked incredulously. With target dates, I confirmed. Facility tour this month, medical evaluation next month, power of attorney paperwork the month after that, and house listing by Christmas. Leonard leaned back in his chair, processing the scope of the deception. Helen, your daughter-in-law has essentially planned your entire disappearance from your own life. This isn't just elder abuse, this is kidnapping and theft. That's when I showed him the most damaging evidence of all, a recorded conversation from the previous night that I'd captured when Julian and Monica thought I was asleep upstairs. Play this one, I said, queuing up the file. Monica's voice filled my kitchen through the computer speakers. Julian, I've run the numbers, your mother's house, investments, and savings total just over $600,000. If we can get her into Medicaid coverage within 2 years, we can protect most of that money legally. Julian's voice was hesitant. Monica, this feels wrong. We're talking about Mom like she's already gone. She is gone, Julian. The woman who raised you isn't there anymore. What we're looking at now is just the shell of who she used to be. And that shell comes with financial responsibilities that could bankrupt our family if we don't handle this smartly. Leonard's jaw tightened as Monica continued. Sienna's college applications are due in 6 months. Do you want to tell your daughter she can't go to the school of her dreams because we were too sentimental to make practical decisions about your mother? But if Mom recovers, Julian started. Monica cut him off. She's not going to recover, Julian. This only gets worse from here, and the longer we wait, the more expensive everything becomes. The facility I visited yesterday has a waiting list, but if we move quickly, we can get her placed before the holidays. The recording ended, and Leonard looked at me with a mixture of admiration and sadness. Helen, you've built a case that any prosecutor would love to have, but I have to ask, what's your end game here? Because exposing this will destroy your son's marriage and possibly send your daughter-in-law to prison. I'd been thinking about that question for days. Julian was a good man who'd gotten caught up in Monica's manipulation. But Monica was actively planning to steal my life, using my granddaughter's future as emotional blackmail. I want them stopped, I said firmly, but I also want Julian to understand what he almost became part of. He's my son, and I love him. But love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. Leonard nodded slowly. What do you need from me? I need a witness with credibility, I said, someone who can testify to my mental competence and to the fact that this entire confused act was a performance designed to expose their true intentions. You've got it, Leonard said without hesitation. Helen, when do you plan to reveal the truth? I looked out my kitchen window at the house I'd called home for over 4 decades, the house where I'd raised my son and welcomed my granddaughter, the house Monica was planning to sell by Christmas. They're bringing commitment papers next week, I said. That's when the performance ends and the reckoning begins. The week before my scheduled intervention, Monica's true nature finally emerged completely. She stopped pretending to care about my feelings and started treating me like an obstacle to be removed. The conversations I recorded during those final days revealed a level of callousness that shocked even me. It was Tuesday evening when Julian brought Pastor Michael Green to the house. Pastor Michael had officiated my wedding to Julian's stepfather and had been a friend to our family for over a decade. Monica had convinced Julian that a spiritual counselor might help me understand why moving to a care facility was God's will. I played my confused grandmother role perfectly, asking Pastor Michael 3 times who he was and why he was in my house. The pain in his eyes was genuine as he tried to connect with a woman he thought was disappearing into dementia. Helen, he said gently, taking my hands in his, your family loves you very much. They want to make sure you're safe and cared for. Safe from what? I asked, letting genuine confusion color my voice, though for different reasons than he thought. After Pastor Michael left, promising to pray for our family, Monica unleashed her frustration on Julian in what she thought was an empty house. I was supposedly napping upstairs, but I was actually in my bedroom with my recording device capturing every venomous word. "She's being manipulative, Julian," Monica hissed. "Did you see how she acted with the pastor? She's not that confused. She's playing games with us, making this harder than it needs to be." "Monica, that's my mother you're talking about," Julian said wearily. "No, Julian, that's not your mother. Your mother was intelligent, capable, independent. What's downstairs is just a stubborn old woman who's too selfish to see that she's destroying this family." The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking, but she wasn't done. "Do you know what she did today? She told Tanya that she didn't understand why strangers were always in her house. Strangers, Julian. She called me a stranger after everything I've done for her." I had said exactly that, and it was probably the most honest thing I'd said in months. "Maybe we should slow down," Julian suggested. "Give her more time to adjust." "Adjust to what?" Monica exploded. "Julian, wake up. Your mother is never going to adjust to reality because she's living in some fantasy where she can still take care of herself. And while we're wasting time being sensitive to her feelings, she's bleeding money and becoming more dangerous every day." "Dangerous?" Julian's voice carried disbelief. "Yesterday she left the iron on for 6 hours, Monica lied smoothly. 6 hours, Julian. Do you know what could have happened? And when I asked her about it, she looked at me like I was crazy." I almost laughed at the boldness of her fabrication. I hadn't used an iron in weeks, and Monica knew it. "The facility director at Sunrise Manor called today." Continued. "They have a bed available, but only if we move quickly. Julian, this is a sign. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for." "I'm not ready," Julian said firmly. "Then when will you be ready?" Monica's voice turned sharp. "When she burns the house down, when she hurts herself so badly that we get sued for negligence, when the state steps in and makes these decisions for us." That's when Monica played her trump card. "Julian, I talked to Sienna today. Do you know what your daughter said to me? She said she's embarrassed to bring friends over because she never knows what state her grandmother will be in. She said it's hard to watch someone she loves disappear like this." My heart broke hearing Sienna's supposed words, but I knew Monica was manipulating even a teenage girl's natural discomfort into ammunition for her cause. "What if we brought Mom to live with us?" Julian suggested desperately. Monica's laugh was harsh. "Julian, be serious. Your mother needs professional care, not babysitting. And honestly, I'm not willing to sacrifice our marriage and Sienna's home life to enable your mother's delusions about her independence." The silence that followed was long and heavy. "The papers are ready," Monica said finally, her voice softening to the tone she used when she knew she was winning. "Dr. Pierce has already signed off on the medical evaluation. The facility has been paid the deposit. All we need is for you to sign the guardianship papers, and we can move forward with what's best for everyone." "Including Mom?" Julian asked quietly. "Especially your mother," Monica said with fake tenderness. "Julian, she's scared and confused, and she's fighting us because she doesn't understand that we're trying to help her. Once she's settled in the facility, once she's getting proper care, she'll be grateful. They all are eventually." The recording ended there, but I had heard enough. Monica had just admitted to lying about the iron, manipulating Sienna's words, and bribing a medical facility. She had also revealed that Dr. Pierce had been deceived into signing medical documents based on false information. But most importantly, she had revealed that commitment papers were already prepared, waiting only for Julian's signature. I had 3 days before they planned to spring their trap. 3 days to prepare my counterattack. The performance was almost over, and it was time for the final act. The student was about to become the teacher, and the lesson was going to be unforgettable. Friday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I had spent the previous evening preparing my final performance, organizing my evidence, and making peace with what I was about to do to my own family. Leonard Hayes was positioned next door, ready to serve as witness to whatever unfolded. Attorney Nina Clark, whom I had secretly retained 2 weeks earlier, had all my documentation and was prepared to act if Monica tried to follow through on her threats. At exactly 10 o'clock, Julian and Monica arrived with a manila folder that contained my future as they saw it. Tanya Brooks was also there, having been asked to serve as a neutral medical witness to my supposed incapacity. What Monica didn't know was that Tanya had already provided Nina Clark with a detailed statement about my actual mental condition. They found me sitting in my favorite armchair, wearing my best blue dress and pearls, looking every inch the confused elderly woman they expected to see. "Good morning, Mom," Julian said gently, kissing my forehead. The love in his gesture almost broke my resolve, but I thought about the recordings, about Monica's laughter when she talked about fooling the old woman with dementia. "Hello, dear," I said vaguely. "Are you here about the insurance?" Monica and Julian exchanged that familiar look, the one that said, "See how bad she's gotten?" "No, Helen," Monica said, speaking slowly and loudly. "We're here to talk about your future, about getting you the help you need." She spread brochures across my coffee table, the same glossy photographs of institutional living that had haunted my nightmares for months. "These are beautiful places, Mom," Julian said, his voice heavy with manufactured enthusiasm. "Places where you'll be safe, where trained professionals can take care of you." I looked at the brochures with feigned interest, then up at Monica with innocent confusion. "But I don't want to live somewhere else. This is my home." Monica's patience was already wearing thin. "Helen, you can't live here anymore. It's not safe. You leave things on, you forget to eat, you don't remember who people are." "That's not true," I said, letting a bit of firmness creep into my voice. "Mom, yesterday you asked me if I was the mailman," Julian said sadly. That's when I stood up, walked to my desk, and placed my hand on the small recording device that had been hidden there for months. The same device that had captured every conversation, every lie, every moment of their conspiracy. "You're right, Julian," I said, my voice suddenly clear and strong. "I did ask you if you were the mailman, just like I asked you what day it was when I already knew, just like I put milk in the pantry and pretended not to know who Sienna was. I did all of those things deliberately as part of a performance designed to expose exactly what kind of people I was living with." The silence in the room was deafening. Monica's face went white, then flushed red. Julian looked like he'd been slapped. "I've been recording every conversation you've had about me for the past 6 months, I continued, pressing play on the device, "including the ones where you laughed about fooling the old woman with dementia." Monica's voice filled the room, sharp and calculating. "She's not going to recover, Julian. This only gets worse from here, and the longer we wait, the more expensive everything becomes." I watched Monica's face crumble as she heard her own words condemning her, "including the conversations where you discussed selling my house to pay for Sienna's college." Julian's recorded voice played next. "What about Mom's wishes? She's always said she wanted to die in this house." Then Monica's response, "Your mother isn't capable of making those decisions anymore. That's why she has us." "And especially," I said, looking directly at Monica, "the conversations where you admitted to lying about incidents that never happened." The recording of Monica's voice was crystal clear. "Yesterday, she left the iron on for 6 hours. 6 hours, Julian." I walked to my linen closet and pulled out my iron, still in its original packaging. "I bought this iron 3 months ago and never used it," I said calmly. "Just like I never put my purse in the refrigerator, never forgot to turn off the stove, and never actually had a single symptom of dementia." Julian was staring at me like he was seeing a ghost. "Mom, I don't understand. If you were pretending, why? Why would you put us through this?" "Because, Julian," I said, my heart breaking for the son I'd raised to be better than this, "I overheard Monica planning this 6 months ago. Before I had shown any signs of confusion, she was already researching how to have me declared incompetent so she could steal my house." I played the recording of Monica's internet searches, the timeline she'd created, the facility deposits she'd paid. Monica has been planning to steal my life, using your love for me and your concern for Sienna as emotional blackmail. And you, my beautiful boy, were so caught up in her manipulation that you almost became an accomplice to elder abuse and fraud." Tanya Brooks stood up from her corner chair. "Mrs. Carter, I need you to know that I documented everything. Your mental clarity, your physical capability, and the family dynamics I observed. I've already provided this information to your attorney." Monica finally found her voice. "This is insane. Helen, you're sick. This paranoid behavior proves you need professional help." I smiled at her, the same knowing smile I'd hidden for months. "Monica, Attorney Nina Clark is expecting a call from me in exactly 1 hour. If she doesn't hear from me, she'll be filing criminal charges against you for financial elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and perjury. You see, Dr. Pierce never actually signed off on any medical evaluation. That was another one of your lies." Leonard Hayes knocked on my front door, arriving right on schedule. "That's Leonard, my neighbor," I said calmly. "He's a retired detective who's been serving as an independent witness to these proceedings. Leonard, please come in." Monica looked trapped, desperate. "Julian, say something. Tell her this is crazy." But Julian was looking at me with something I hadn't seen in his eyes for months. Respect. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'm so sorry. I almost let her convince me to betray everything you taught me about family loyalty." I walked over to my son and took his hands in mine. "Julian, you're a good man who got caught up in a bad woman's schemes. But you're still my son, and I still love you. The question is, what are you going to do now?" Julian looked at Monica, then at the commitment papers in the manila folder, then at me. Without a word, he tore the papers in half. Monica left my house that day and never came back. The divorce papers were filed within a month. Julian and Sienna moved back into their old apartment, and slowly, carefully, we began rebuilding our relationship. I kept my house, my independence, and my dignity. But most importantly, I kept my family, the parts of it worth keeping. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let someone destroy you, even when that someone is family. And sometimes the only way to save the people you love is to show them exactly who they're in danger of becoming. That's my story of how I pretended to lose my mind to save my life. Did you enjoy it? I'd love to hear what you would have done in my situation. Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Mama Rosa Remembers. Your support means everything to me, and I have so many more stories to share about the strength we find when life tests us. Thank you for listening with an open heart. Until next time, remember that wisdom isn't about age. It's about knowing when to fight for what matters most.